Hi there everyone, it's nice to see you again. Welcome back here to my YouTube channel, and today it's a box opening and review. And I've got an item that I picked up a couple of weeks ago, but it's really caught my eye and I wanted to share this with you. So without further ado, let's take a look. So this is the item that I've picked up. It's a late BR liveried Drummond 700 class, and it's very much a hidden gem, I think, at the moment from the Hornby range. These can be had pretty cheaply, and we've got some links down below which let you get one yourself. But I've been looking around actually, and to be able to get these for less than half of the usual RRP selling price is really quite good. So I've been umming and ahhing, but I thought, you know what, at the price that they're at, it would just be so rude not to. And I've not seen a lot of people talking about these. They've kind of passed a little bit under the radar, but as you're going to see, this is probably one of the best Hornby models that's on the market, and I believe offers absolutely superb value for money at the moment. You really just can't get a high quality super detailed locomotive this cheap, so get them whilst you can. The catalogue number on this is R3420, and they've been out a couple of years now, and it's had time for Hornby to produce them in a number of different identities, and you can find them with BR Early Crest, BR Late Crest, and also Southern Railway Black. So it really covers a long period of the existence of these locomotives. Comes in the pretty standard Hornby packaging. We've got the picture of the model on the slipcase, and actually I quite like this because normally if I slide this out of the slipcase, you can see it's a bit of a mess in there. So really, packaging such as this shows the model at its best, and it's a really good way of showing the buying public what it is they're going to be getting. And it's, you know, it's not false advertising. It really is a photo of a model in this livery. So what you see is what you get, and it's all just extra card, and cardboard's pretty easy to recycle. You can either use it in your modelling or it goes in the card recycling. So no extra plastic or any rubbish like that. So I really quite like it. Let's just slide all this out. This is where we do get to the plastic. And it is good to see that from all the manufacturers pretty much, we've long since gone away from that awful polystyrene that we used to get. So it's pretty standard packaging, so not really anything to talk about, but what you do get in here is there's a little packet of a few extra bits and pieces for the user to fit should they so wish. So I can see brake rigging there for underneath the tender. We've got a front coupling that just slides into the NEM pocket, and a couple of what appear to be vacuum pipes, presumably front and back. So you can fit these if you really want to, but you know, for a lot of people actually, you're never going to see the underside, so actually I'll leave a lot of these in the box, but whatever's your poison. It's pretty easy to get the locomotive out from the packaging, and it's something as well that I like with this newer style packaging that we're seeing from all manufacturers at the moment. Well, certainly Hornby and Bachmann. It's much less likely to cause damage to models when getting them out of the box, and there's so much fine factory applied detail on here that really you can see that you know, you wouldn't want to snag anything out of the box. It's what to most people's eyes would be perhaps a little bit of a plain livery, but actually these workaday locomotives really do suit this plain black livery. And as I said before, there's a choice of 3 different livery variations, and I've seen a number of different releases year on year, but these at the moment are available for the knockdown price of around £59, and you're just not going to get a tender locomotive to this standard brand new for that kind of money. So they're going to go fast is my prediction on that. First impressions, well, we've got an awful lot going on the side with all these extra pipework applied. This is accurate as per the prototype, but I think it really adds some interest to the exterior of this locomotive, so both accurate and aesthetically pleasing. The other thing that my eye is always drawn to with these is the representation of the motion that's just there inside the frames. It's something I said before was lacking, unfortunately, with the Hornby Terrier, which I thought they could have put in there, but with this they have not skimped at all. So we've got that representation of the motion. It doesn't go round when the locomotive runs, but in all honesty, that isn't a detraction. The fact that it's there, picked out in the red, as per the real prototypes, for me, it looks right when it goes around the track. There isn't a huge amount of tampo printed material on here, but what there is has been picked out pretty sharply to my eyes. So we've got the number 30346, and just above there we've got the power classification, and I'm just going to have to bring it a bit closer. 3F. So this locomotive was classified 3F, which actually I thought it might have been slightly more powerful than that, but certainly it's a useful locomotive, able to run with a variety of different trains. It was a real stalwart, a mixed traffic locomotive in its day. We've also got a builder's plate on the splasher there in the middle, which again, my eyes, I can't read it with my naked eye, but I have got every faith that the tampo printing is so exquisite and so clear that under close magnification, I don't doubt we're going to be able to read that. And that is something that I suppose the bar has been raised from all manufacturers, and it really is amazing, some of the fine detail, and it's well worth having a good closer look at some of these with a magnifying glass, or even just taking a high quality photo and enlarging it, just to actually enjoy some of this detail that's been put there. It does amaze me, and actually, as we showed in a video a little while ago, we actually found a hidden message on a Hornby wagon that had been out around a year at the time, and nobody else had picked up on it. It was quite amazing to find little messages like that. I'm quite expecting at some point Hornby to leave a little message saying, Jenny, no, there is no hidden message here, move along now, or something like that. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. We've also got the ferret and dartboard crest on the tender, and again, it's really sharp. We've got the different colours there, all crisply defined, and whilst this sort of flat side with not even a huge amount of rivet detail, I'm just trying to see there is a bit of a seam along the top. That's a seam that should be there rather than a moulding seam, just to make that clear. And this could otherwise be something where the model fell down, but it doesn't. It doesn't look slab-sided. The actual paint finish of the black has, in my eyes, got things just right. And even though this locomotive is pristine as it's presented here from the box, it doesn't look like a locomotive that looks too clean, if that makes any sense. The finish on this is perfect, and it kind of gives off that vibe of that workhorse that's slightly oily, slightly grimy, but not too grimy. So well cared for, but certainly working hard. And I think it would actually be sacrilege to go ahead and weather this locomotive, because this finish is just beautiful to look at. I really do like the way that, black is something. People think, oh, black's black. But it's so easy, and we've seen on models in the past, it's so easy to make a hash of black and make it look like a toy. But Hornby have got this kind of satin feel to the black done just right, and the locomotive looks so good for it. We've got full metal connecting rods here, which do appear to be correctly applied. The axle boxes are the right way up. I know I've missed that on some reviews before now with other models, and people said, oh, it's been assembled upside down. So I am looking at that, and it has been assembled correctly. They are metal, and they are pretty fine, and that's an area that Hornby do really well with. They do get the connecting rods pretty well, even down to fairly scale thickness. The brake rigging on there is factory applied, and it's got quite an interesting brake rigging on these. It's sort of outside of the wheels, and it's nice to see that that is factory applied, because I could imagine if that was something that came in the little detail pack for a user to fit, it would be a little bit tricky to fit and would actually detract from the locomotive if you didn't do that. So it's nice to see that stuff like that has been applied. We've also got down here, I think it's something to do with the injectors on the real locomotive, picked out in this lovely coppery sort of brass colour, and it is really nice. We've also got this reverser here, which is a separately fitted metal piece, and it is actually pretty strong. I'm prodding away at that, and I almost expect it to be able to move in a way that a reverser would. It does look that good to me. The brake blocks do line up with the main treads of the wheels, and it's something I always crack on about this, but it has been said to me that that can mean there's an issue if you want to convert this to P4 or EM, so that's perhaps something to watch out for. But as these are separate detailing pieces, it may be possible to set them a little bit further out if that is the direction that you yourself are wanting to go. The locomotive is all-wheel pickup, all-wheel drive, and on the tender as well, we've got some extra pickups as well to help with matters. And on the underside, here is an area where I do think that Hornby have got a good lead on the competition. And sometimes it's the simple things, but the tender drawbar is screwed just using a flathead screw to both the tender and the locomotive, and this isn't the case on a lot of the Bachmann locomotives that I've reviewed, and I find it something that's quite annoying to get them lined up when you're putting them on the track, and sometimes it can be quite easy to not quite couple it up, and you put a lot of stress on these wires that go from the locomotive to the tender for those pickups and for the DCC socket. But in Hornby's case, they've actually quite sensibly attached that drawbar at both ends, so they're both semi-permanently coupled together. If you need to move them apart, you can unscrew them, but I think that, you know, it's such a simple thing, and Hornby have got that absolutely right. As I've touched on before, it's all-wheel pickup, so we've got pickups in both the tender and in the locomotive, and then it's six-wheel drive for the locomotive. It actually gets pretty good adhesion. I've had this running with some quite long trains up in the loft with no problems whatsoever on performance, and I'd actually go as far as to say that it's one of the best running Hornby locomotives that I've seen in recent years. That's not to detract from any of the others. Generally speaking, the Hornby models that we're seeing coming through now are all superb at road holding abilities and their haulage capacity, but this one in particular, I just think that it's perfectly balanced. It really does haul a train without any great difficulty, and I've had it hauling coach trains up to 10, 11, 12 coaches in length without even starting to wheel slip. The couplings are held in place in industry standard NEM pockets. The one on the tender comes ready fitted with the slimline tension lock in place, and there's another pocket here at the front, and you're supplied with the coupling in the additional details bag if you wish to add that coupling to the front of the locomotive. The buffers on this are all sprung, turned metal heads all the way round, front and back, and they really are nice. They're quite small and slender, just like on the prototype, but they do work exactly as needed, and they are well in there. And it's been a criticism that I've made of other manufacturers at times, that the buffer heads, you can just pull them out, but not with the Hornby model. They are well and truly in there, which is good, because there's nothing worse than after a running session noticing that a buffer head has gone missing and then trying to track down exactly where that has disappeared to. In terms of other details, we've got a full plate at the back of the cab. It looks like it should be posable, but it doesn't feel like it moves. And if I'm going to find one detraction, it's going to be that in that sort of semi-up position, once you spot it, it does look a little bit bizarre to my eyes. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could probably bend it down. It is an etched metal part by the feel of it, but certainly it feels a little bit like a compromise that doesn't really appease any party in terms of either ease of this running or the rivet counter brigade. So I'm not quite sure why Hornby have chosen to put it in that position. In terms of the actual coal load in the tender, again, this is an area that Hornby do seem to be doing quite well. It's moulded plastic, but it does look like proper coal. You know, it doesn't have this sort of uniform, weird, toy-like appearance that we've seen in the past. And this coal load is removable, so I'm getting a fingernail up there at the back, and I can lever it up. But I don't really want to force it too much. But that coal load does move, and with a little bit of work that will come out by the feel of it, but underneath inside the tender there's not actually a lot of a recess in there. We'll come to that later on when we talk about the DCC fitting. So in my personal opinion, this coal load is good enough to just leave in place. Other fittings, the actual funnel itself is very, very slender, and looking down it, it does look like it goes a long way down. In fact, I can just about see the motion down at the bottom, the wheels, but it's not like a window to another world. It's just dark down there, and that may sound like a stupid thing to say, but actually, you know, on a real locomotive you'd be looking right down into a very dark smoke box, and this does have a feel of being a void that goes right down in there prototypically. And the actual thickness of the plastic that the chimney there is moulded out of is of a very good scale thickness. So to my eyes, it does look really, really good. We've got metal handrails on the side of the boiler. They're factory applied, and they're actually very, very fine, but they're not flimsy. I've had a few locomotives where they've been very easy to pop out of place and then been the devil's own job to get back in. But these do feel quite well on there. Looking to the face of the locomotive, we've got an accurately represented smokebox door, and there's a lot of separately applied detail on there. We've got lamp brackets, which are, I'm not sure whether they're plastic or metal, but they're certainly pretty resilient to me prodding them. There's a bit of flex to them, but they don't want to break, and that's important. I don't like some of these little fine bits of detail that break off the moment you look at them. We've also got the smokebox door dart on there, which appears to again be a separate metal fitting. There's a bit of spring to it, but it does have the finesse of a scale part. The final bit of detail that I want to look into is something which really we're getting coming through from all manufacturers now, and I quite like it. The insides of the cab, we look at that, the backhead detail, we've got separately picked out dials, pipe work. It's maybe not as resplendent as we've seen in some other models, but it certainly does look the part, with separately applied wheels at the top there for some of the valve mechanisms, and it's a brilliant starting point to be able to add in a crew to this locomotive. So I've got here the model, and I'm going to show you how quick and simple it is to DCC fit this. One of the things I will say though is that it is very tight on space. So turn this over, and you can see in there are two screws, one either side. They're the only ones that you need to bother with, so forget about any of the others. Just a really quick, with a very small jeweler's crosshead screwdriver, undo one, undo two, and then got to be careful not to lose the screws, but just lift that up, and it's held in at the front, so we'll lever it forwards and up, and the entire top peels away. Now you can see here I've pre-fitted this with the Hatton's DCC chip. This is the direct plug one, and what I found with this is that actually it pays to loosen it up, to undo the two screws that the DCC socket is held to, and that's because the Hatton's 8-pin direct plug chip is just a little bit too wide in this position to be able to get the lid of the tender back on. So it just helps if you can turn that around like that. Of course, if you use the Hatton's harness 8-pin chip, It doesn't have that problem, but what I have found is that it is very restricted on space inside the tender. You can see that we've got these metal plates here. There's 3 of them stacked one on top of the other, and this gives the weight, the ballast weight, to the tender to make it run better and to get better adhesion for the pickups. Now, if you use the harness chip that Hattons do, what I found is that you have to remove one of these metal plates, and it makes it a little bit lighter than I would be happier with, but it can be fitted in. But if you're looking to fit this with a sound chip, I found that actually it's going to take a lot more work. You probably going to have to remove all of these metal plates and have a think about an alternative method to ballast this tender. And well, that's probably a little bit too intense for the likes of people like me. But certainly if you were looking to fit a TTS chip into this, it is not going to fit, because that is actually quite a narrow tender and there's not a lot of headspace in there. But the Hattons direct plug chip is actually the best compromise that I've come across. It plugs straight in. As long as you undo that plate that the chip holder is in, just line it up there. I've used a little piece of masking tape in there. I know a lot of people sort of wail and gnash teeth when they see me using things other than electrical tape and heat shrink tubing, but I've not actually had any problems with this, and it just makes sure that there's no risk of shorting from the underside of the chip holder with these pickups that you see inside the tender. When you come to put it back together, it's made a lot easier by the fact that Hornby permanently couple the loco and tender. But what we're looking to do is, there's a little gap there you can see, and a little lug on the front of the tender. Now this for me is the trickiest part in trying to get them to engage, and this sometimes takes a couple of attempts, and it can be a little bit difficult at first, but once you get it in the right place, it clicks in. The tender top goes back down, and then we're just looking at screwing back in the 2 screws that we took out originally, and you're good to go. Overall, I think this very much is a sleeper hit from Hornby. It's one that you can pick up quite cheaply out and about. This particular example, £59, as is the early crest version, and just a tenner more for the Southern Railway liveried version. And that's a steal for a locomotive that runs this well and looks this good. So I'm going to give it a 9.7 out of 10. The only major detraction that I can see is that fall plate between locomotive and tender that really doesn't appease any critics in that position. But if it really does bother you, then you can either remove it completely or try and bend it to a much flatter angle. Well, I hope that that was informative to you. Don't forget to like this video, share it too, and also remember that you can check us out on Patreon and support the channel if you so wish, and that helps us make more of the videos that you like to watch. But until next time, you take really good care of yourself. Thanks again for watching. It's been really good to have your company. So look after yourself, and I'll see you again. Bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon. And an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Bob Threeton, Alec Ralph, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, and oorail.co.uk. If you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knobty Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.